With us now to take us through their selection of the newspapers, entrepreneur Kate Hardcastle and sports agent Kevin Adams. Just on that, Kevin, what's your view on this sort of free sugars and the actual natural sugars, the difference? Do you think it makes a difference? Do we need to know?
It makes a massive difference, but the labelling is not enough. When you talk about nutritional content, no one's really interested. I think we shop with our purse or our wallet. The amount of money we have determines what we buy, and if something's more expensive, perishable items are so expensive. So natural sugars from fruit, from grapes or strawberries, they're great, but can you afford them every day? No, you can't. So you buy the cheaper option, and that's always going to be the way forward. And if you put the price up of this, you're going to price everyone out of the market, and what are we going to buy?
Talking about pricing the market, let's talk about energy firms. Kate, this is in the Eye, page 4 of the Eye.
Well, there's the warning that perhaps UK households become inundated with sales calls. As we know, we all struggle, I think, to try and understand our gas, electricity, what we're paying for, how are we paying for it. They don't use the easiest language, I don't think, for consumers. I think consumers are constantly baffled. There's lots of sites now where you can compare one element to the other, but I think the challenges for the UK consumers are very vulnerable from the energy suppliers. We all need it, we all want it, but, you know, an understanding of what you're getting, how is your contract. And what's going to happen here is, you know, they're trying to protect the consumer by opening up the marketplace to make it a fairer level playing field. But in doing so, one of the elements they're looking at insisting on is that actually energy firms open up their books, if you like, so share data of their customers to other energy providers. And the flip side to that, obviously, is you suddenly become vulnerable to more sales calls, more texts, more flooding of information of people trying to get you on the phone to get you to convert, particularly if perhaps you haven't switched supplier.
Yeah, and people find it so confusing anyway, don't they?
Tremendously confusing, just like mobile phone contracts. I mean, you know, we are all experts in our fields of what we know, and what we don't know, we just try and consume and understand as we go along. But energy is not something you can take or leave, really. We all need it. And I do think simplification is really needed to be looked at as part of this process.
We talk about simplification so much, and it's an ongoing thing that every year I think we talk about the same thing. It's always after Christmas, you know, when your bills have gone up, you think about, let's just simplify it. With mobile contracts now, it is simplified. You know that each month you're going to be paying a tariff, so you can actually shop around. With energy bills, when you look at your energy bill, if one person can tell me exactly what they pay per unit, I'll take my hat off to them. Because it is just, if you can look at your bill and say to me, this is how much I pay per unit, we don't.
And everyone says it's so easy to switch, it's so simple to switch. It isn't really, is it? I mean, it takes an awful lot of time, and you've got to have the inclination.
Well, and there's know what you get for your money, which is a different thing.
It depends who you talk to there, because a lot of experts say it doesn't take any time at all to switch. You just got to actually be quite disciplined, sit down and say, I'm going to switch providers. But a lot of us believe we haven't really got the time to do it.
I think the fear factor comes into it a lot.
I've sat down and I've tried to do that. When you sit in front of the computer, you have to get your bill, you have to, and you can't, it's not just putting in the data. I don't just say, this is my energy provider, give me a cheaper one. It doesn't work like that. You have to work out what tariff you're on for what time. There's different tariffs at different times.
See, that's what I suspected. That's why I've just continued to be lazy.
Yeah, I tried.
OK. You tried. Let's look at the Eye, another page, Kevin, your story. This is the special relationship.
Yes. When you come to the end of your term, I think your lips become loose. It's like if I knew I was leaving a certain job, then I would go to my boss and I'd say to my boss, do you know what, I never liked you, and there's certain things about your character that I didn't want to say, but now I was late once and you remembered that and you brought it up. You bring up all these things. Barack Obama's still in office and now he's like telling tales on David Cameron. I don't think this is good. I think even though your tenure's coming to an end, you still have a responsibility of duty not to say the things that you kind of like maybe you should say. Did David Cameron make some mistakes with Libya? Yes, he did. Could we have released some intelligence? Was his eye off the target? Then maybe yes. But ultimately,
why shouldn't he share that? Why shouldn't he say?
Because everyone makes mistakes, and it's not so much mistakes. You've got so much to do. If David Cameron runs a country, there are things you have to do, and there are things going on, and you prioritise, and priorities may not match America. We're not beholden to America, and it's kind of like, you know, talking about our budget now, so how much we spend. There are so many things that we could complain about America, and I think that actually David Cameron could do exactly the same thing, flip reverse it, but he has a certain amount of decorum, that he won't actually do that. But I think he actually should.
Do you think it sounds a little bit like a man on President Obama's part who is spinning lots of plates? He's about to end his tenure as president, and he's quite frustrated that a lot of the stuff that he hoped to achieve and he hoped to rectify just hasn't been rectified.
But he needs to work on his own, work from inside out, because, you know, they're the gun lobbyists and there's still the gun crime going on. Don't worry about what David Cameron didn't do. Really fix your own backyard before you come into anyone else's backyard.
Do you think it could have been that situation though where people get drawn into a comment on a situation and therefore it just gets pulled out of it and actually wasn't making a comment at all?
I'm sorry, when you're in politics, you know how to dance.
Oh, I agree,
you put the left foot and then the right foot. Please,
shake it all about.
No, absolutely not.
Onto this fantastic story that will bring hope to millions. In The Guardian, this is the breast cancer drugs that are being developed. Astonishing results, it's saying.
It's every paper this morning is covering the fantastic news that in a trial, 11% of the women that were treated with this cocktail combination of two drugs had no active cancer cells in the body after the treatment. A couple of warning points on this. The people who've worked on this trial have said they still don't understand particularly why those two drugs combined, working together, has had that effect. And the other thing is that it's still a trial. And my concern is, last week I was listening to a very similar piece of research that had brought up good news, particularly on cancers like lung cancer. And then I also heard interviews of people who sadly had a diagnosis of terminal cancer and were talking about how pieces of news like this can be absolutely traumatising for them and their family, because if you're not on the trial and if this doesn't reach in time, if this isn't NHS approved in time, it's not a hope, it's not a lifeline for you. So whilst ever, absolutely, any breakthrough is good and we must fund cancer, you know, it's one of our main killers. It also does concern me that sometimes the press takes something and overblow it and over-sensationalise it when actually this is early days yet. Good news, but early days, yeah.
It's so difficult when you see these people that are doing these studies, and when they make the slightest breakthrough, they want to scream it from the rafters.
Course,
after 2 years of research and you're studying, you sit and you study something for 2 years, and then one inkling of a difference, you're like, okay, I want everyone to know about it. So I get where they're coming from, and I do feel for these. I feel for everyone that suffers with cancer, having been close to someone that's actually been lost their life, that lost their fight to cancer.
Yeah.
But you can't. You do want to scream it from the rafters at some point.
Let's hope it can be rolled out in the not too distant future. Just before the break, let's have a look at this hypocrisy of the lovies. Kevin, what's this about? In the Mail.
Yeah, the Mail loves the Mail loves celebrities and loves to bash the celebrities, and I like to read the Mail. I like to read all papers. But what I will say is that when you're a celebrity, you live a different lifestyle to everyone else. So it's quite easy for you to say that yes, we should take in more migrants into the country. When there are over 11 million people that have been displaced by conflict in Israel, a fair share is probably going to be around 2 million. We don't have the space for 2 million people. So when celebrities once again say, OK, why don't we take them into our houses, we should think about the 9,000 people that are homeless on the street that we don't take in. Again, as I said about Barack Obama, start at home. Don't worry about taking people from Syria. Start at home. People living on the streets, people living in hostels, people without children going to school without food. There are things that we should do first and foremost. And we have a foreign aid budget of £12 billion that goes to help these people. We are doing a fair share, and we raise money.
But the celebrities are being criticised because they're saying, well, they're not taking them into their sort of gilded homes, but they're entitled to their opinion as anybody else's on the street. Many people on the street aren't taking them to their homes. So.
No, but then they should take the people off the street that are living on the street.
Point taken. Kevin and Kate for the minute, thank you, but let's take a break now. Stay with us, more to come. Still with us, Kate and Kevin. Now it is time for crufts, and we see all manner of pooches being displayed. This particular one that's photographed there for us, what does it look like?
This is a Yorkshire Terrier with her hair in bows, ready for the 125th Crufts dog show. I mean, if you read the papers this morning, you're not going to get away from images from Crufts and the dog he's preparing for it, including Mabel, the Manchester Terrier there that you'll see in the yellow hoodie. Have you seen the yellow knitted hoodie on there as well?
Lovely.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a bit bizarre. I'm a dog owner. I love my dogs.
Is this cruel, though?
I can't... I couldn't even get an item of clothing on them if I tried. It would just be pointless, so I wouldn't even attempt it, really. But I suppose it's some people really take on the dog and treat it as, you know, part of the family, and they want to dress them up.
But the dog has no say in this, and I don't think dogs really were made to have bows around their person.
I would love to see that person's children, because you know those children are going to look exactly the same with the bows on. It's distressing for the dog.
There are a lot of bows.
And it's distressing for children.
Yeah.
They've all got a look on their
need.
faces, particularly the one on the left, of look at what my owner's just done to me.
But then the
Fear,
owners will say,
I think it's called.
and the owners will always say, oh yeah, but no, she loves it.
How do they know?
Well, she
How
does.
do they know? The dog told them. Right, just got a little bit of time to talk about Robbie Williams. He doesn't like going to the supermarket. Oh, he's never been to the supermarket. Is this true?
No, I know Robbie of old, and Robbie now has a lifestyle. He doesn't need to go to the supermarket. When you've worked as hard as he has, you don't need to go to the supermarket. Ida is great because she doesn't have a filter. She says what really goes on, and she's great. She's a great addition to Loose Women, but I'm sure Robbie was sat there quaking in his boots and knowing what's going to come out of her mouth next. And it's the fact of the matter that, yeah, he doesn't go to the supermarket. Why would he? If I had the money or I won the lottery, I wouldn't go to the supermarket either.
Oh, I would. I like going to the supermarket.
No, I like to shop for clothes. I don't want to shop for food. I want it to be there. And if there's an apple that's bruised, I will throw it into the wall and say, how dare you bring me bruised apples? That is how I would behave. I do have delusions of grandeur. That's what's never going to happen for me.
Kevin, Kate, we'll leave you to do your online shopping in the break. Charlie, I'm sure, is no stranger to the supermarket.
I go as rarely as possible, I have to say. Actually, it's not an enjoyment for me. Some rather unfortunate news for Sebastian Coe in the Times here. He's accused of misleading a blood doping investigation. Researchers in Germany have claimed that Athletics International governing body has blocked publication of a study that suggested as many as 45% of track and field athletes had been involved in doping. And Coe has said that the research lacked authenticity.
Not great news. Charlie, thank you. Let's see what's happening with the weather now with Naz. She loves the supermarket. Gamal, thank you. Let's take you through the newspapers now with us entrepreneur Kate Hardcastle and Kevin Adams, celebrity fitness trainer. Is that how we like to describe you?
Yes.
Is that okay?
So I like to describe myself, but you can describe me any way you choose.
Maybe we shouldn't. Let's start with the Mail, Kate. You're looking at working and studying simultaneously, doing a degree while in employment.
Yeah, one of the things that comes out of this story in the Mail today is that only 1 in 10 parents are aware of something, which is an apprentice-like scheme, but allowing you to get a qualification and degree whilst you're at work. And it's something I did. I don't think that was the plan at that time. I knew that I couldn't afford to take on student debt. I didn't want to take on student debt. I knew that graduation would help, definitely, because the figures here show that graduates are more likely to be employed than non-graduates. But I also wanted to get out and get experience. I knew that experience and hands-on stuff would be pretty vital, and it's worked out really well. And I think this is a great opportunity to do some education on a role that's going to help young people get life hands-on experience, which you need, because we all know what we study and what we actually go and do, very two different things, on-the-job training. It's going to allow you to get that enrichment of education and do it without the debt. What I would say is it was a pretty miserable 5 years social-wise for me. There were no pubs.
It's tough, isn't it?
Absolutely. There were no nights out. There was very little enjoyment. Didn't see my friends very much, but it was a great period of time to get on the property ladder as well and get on with life. So it's a sacrifice, isn't it? You know, and they've got a case study of a girl from Yorkshire here who's 18 years old. She's working with Nestle. She's got one of these apprenticeship opportunities to get her degree, and she's saying, you know, it's hard work, but I've got the balance and I'm not going to have the debt. So it's a sacrifice, definitely sacrifice.
I suppose you have to have the right constitution, don't you? You've got to be fairly strong-willed and absolutely determined to work and study at the same time.
And for anyone doing it, I will absolutely be honest and say I do look back and worry. I did miss out on some fun. I did miss out on some, you know, that part of your life definitely with a gap year or something in between would have been perhaps a bit more of an exciting time, a bit more fun.
But I guess it separates those who really want to do it as a profession and those who are like, well, I could do it and I don't really know what else I'm going to do, so I might as well just have a go at that.
I just think looking at everything, which is a much bigger picture, but the housing crisis, people struggling to get on the housing ladder, they're spending, you know, tens of thousands of pounds on rent every year. It's a very challenging marketplace you're going into with less job opportunities, more freelance contracts. You know, that job for life thing doesn't exist anymore, so maybe the pain has to come earlier on so you can enjoy it leisure later on.
See, you've made the sacrifices then, and now you don't have to make those sacrifices.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people doing it the other way around. So they went out and enjoyed their younger life, and now in older life they're suffering because purse strings are tight.
Yeah, deferred gratification, that's called, isn't it?
I think that's what we're looking at. I'm just waiting. What year is the gratification coming, Gillian? You know, I might be 70 going round in a wheel.
You've had yours. You've had plenty. We don't feel sorry for you. The Sun, Kevin, looking at knife crime.
Yes, only 1 in 2 thugs, they're being called in the Sun, is actually getting jailed on the 2 strikes and out. For me, I think if you carry a knife, that's 1 strike. You carry it again, you should go straight to prison. But are they being incarcerated? No, they've been let off. Out of 900, only 450 youths or whoever these people are being sent to prison. For me, you shouldn't carry a knife. If you get caught with a knife on the street and it's not in a case, then you should actually go straight to prison. I think what it is with young people and with teens right now, I have a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old nephew. If someone in a school is carrying a knife, it makes you want to protect yourself. You're going to therefore want to carry a knife. So you understand the mentality of someone that thinks, I'm scared, he's got a knife, do I not go to school, or do I tell my parents? Who do I tell? What do I do? I understand how it can escalate. So for me, 2 strikes is 1 too many. It should be 1 and then out. But even now, it's making a mockery of the system because it's not being followed through.
Yeah, I don't think there are many people that would disagree with you on
A lot
that.
of people will point out the education and the breeding ground for that attitude and behaviour. Like you said, you know, if someone carries a knife, then someone else is going to want to retaliate. But we've got to be heavy-handed with this.
Yes, amen.
You know, because if you, at any age, you know, have done that even protection, what is the state of mind to protect? How far are you going to go to protect? Who's taught in that, you know, weaponry to be able to know the difference between a protective stab and a, you know, stab that's...
There is no distinction.
There's nothing.
See, for me, and that's what I always zero. It's the same with gun crime in this country. I think if you carry a gun on the streets in this country, you deserve to get shot. And yes, I will say it. I don't care what you tweet me. I'm going to say it, and I will say it again. If you have a knife, we don't have a Second Amendment which gives us a right to bear arms. You carry a knife in this country, expect to get shot. That will stop you. Carry a knife, expect to go to prison. Trust me, it will stop you.
Deterrent.
That's very clear. Now, who won't be cowed by critics? This is in the Mail, Kate.
I think every time Kevin and I have probably sat here and talked to you about the papers, body image and the challenge of body image has been prevalent in the papers in some way. And we have here a young star, Daisy Ridley, who will not apologise for her appearance because she has been trolled online for looking too thin. And the way it's been done is actually a criticism of her, saying that you are basically upholding an unrealistic body image for young people today. I personally, this is absolutely against anything. People are the shape and size they are. And we must celebrate all walks of life, all looks, different hair colours, different body types, you know, different statures, different way of fashioning ourselves. We have got to just pull back on this ease in which we find it to criticise other people for appearance. For me, the most important thing I learnt as a kid was actually it's the person you are on the inside, not what you look like on the outside. Yet
Well,
we
that's
all
the
know...
message you do want to get across to children, but that's not the message that they're taking, sadly.
How do you stop it in this internet age that we're living in with, you know, social media everywhere, every single day?
I tell you, sorry, I tell you how you stop it. You stop by just letting it, we like to skinny shame in this country. country. If someone is a size 14, we celebrate them because we call that's like a right size. If someone's a size 8, we're like, oh, she's too thin. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. I hear it on here. Like, people have been like skinny shaming for celebrities that have lost too much weight. Is there a right way to be? If someone is too thin to be a role model, can they be too fat to be a role model? No. We celebrate everyone.
Do you think we celebrate curves in this country?
I celebrate curves.
You might, but do you think in this country we celebrate curves?
No, we
Right.
don't.
You know I've just had twins,
Yes.
but you've seen me before twins. You
Yes.
know what size I am.
Yes.
Size 12, yeah?
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
Healthy?
Yes.
You know I'm healthy?
Oh,
you know
no,
I'm petite,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we've talked about it
People
before.
on Twitter call me a pie eater.
Right, and
Right?
you
People have a go at me saying I'm fat on Twitter. Now, I am far bigger than that. But if I'm fat, I don't think we curve celebrate in this company. I think we curve shame. And I think we thin shame. And I think we basically attack everyone for the way they look. And it is not about the way they look. And if people don't start actually changing this, then more young people are committing suicide. For the first time this year,
Absolutely right.
young girls aged 10 to 16, the statistic of suicides in that age group went up. Perfectly physically healthy girls. And you know the statistics on male suicide as well.
Yes, I do.
This is not okay. This is
No.
not okay. We're talking about cancer cures 1 minute, and then the next minute we're on here saying, you know, this is an acceptable way of life. I think there must be responsibility with the social media owners like the Facebooks, like the Twitter, to start condemning and coming down on this.
But what do they do? What can they do?
I think you should have a more open complaint system. Currently, the complaint system is too convoluted, too difficult. If someone makes it difficult for you, not only should you be able to get rid of them out of your, you know, social sphere, you should be able to put a complaint in.
Right, and then also with Twitter, if you block someone, their comment still remains in your feed, and I don't understand how blocked means that other people and I can still see the comment. It's really so
They are
they don't
viable
help.
business owners. They could start by making the move.
Also, not just Twitter. I'm not just going about Twitter, but also, you know, I had a child that when she was a teenager, when she was younger in infant school, she wasn't into food, so she was really she was a thin girl. But she would eat, but she wasn't really that interested in food. Does that mean that other people can then condemn her for the size she is, and then another child that maybe eats, that loves food and really enjoys it, you're going to condemn? We have to stop.
Yeah.
Enough's enough.
And I think that it's not recognised the true effect that the condemnation can have, particularly on a young mind.
Absolutely.
And how that can halt their development and future
It's
life.
hard enough when you're a mature adult to deal with criticism, particularly the way you look. So imagine a young person going through that and being told relentlessly, this is the way you must look, this is the way you must
And
act.
for men too, with body image and body dysmorphia.
This isn't just a female thing, I agree.
No.
No, we spent a bit of time on that, but I think we needed to. Thanks very much, Kate and Kevin. For the minute, we are going to take a break. Stay with us. Still with us, Kate and Kevin, the two Ks, KK. We're going to have a look at this story in New Day, new paper, Midler comeback.
Yes, I sound like I'm on a rant this morning, but this was about
You rant
International
away.
Women's Day. Makes a change from me rather than you.
Yes.
Really, doesn't it?
Good, I like that.
But this is International Women's Day. Kim Kardashian goes out there and she tweets the picture that many of us have seen now of her naked and saying that she had nothing to wear, which I disagree with, because I know, for instance, Kanye's got his own clothing line, so she must have had something to wear. But it's caused quite a stir. Bette Midler came and said, look, actually, this wasn't the right time to do it. You know, International Women's Day is about us being equals, and, you know, it's not about making it sexy almost. So they've been having a little bit of a spat. So this is Bette's comeback here, and she's said, you know, put your selfie to work, join me in a good cause. And she's also offered to match pound dollar for dollar 2-to-1 if Kim will retweet this message, this blatant publicity for her charity, Stages for Success. So, you know, good on her. It's taken the opportunity to do something good out of it all.
So is she encouraging women to tweet semi-naked selfies then?
She's not naked at all, as you'll see there. That's definitely not the derriere of Miss Bette Midler.
Well, I was going to say,
actually
it
an
looks rather
enjoyable
good.
little play on words.
Sometimes when you work out and you feel good about yourself, it's okay to. If you look on my Instagram, I tweet pictures of myself when I'm
that's
feeling
your
good about
job,
myself.
isn't it?
But sometimes I feel good about myself, and then when I don't feel good about myself, I cover up. There are those days that you just want to cover up, and there's days you just want to get it out.
It's that spat, isn't it? I mean,
I don't have the latter, ever. I can't say I've ever experienced the latter.
At the end of the day, some good has come out of all of this. But do you remember a day when there wasn't all the social media
No,
You know,
seems
the
like an awful
furore
long
that
time
comes
ago.
out of it is
Long time ago.
constant.
You're finishing off, Kevin, Harry and David hang out. This is in the Sun.
Yeah, David Beckham's trying to put me out of a job.
Why? What's he doing?
Well, he's training with Harry, and it's just not right. I think as a celebrity personal trainer, there are things when people cross the mark. And David Beckham has truly crossed the mark.
Appreciate it.
No, I don't appreciate it. I worked with the Spice Girls as a dancer. I didn't cross the mark and then say I wanted to marry Victoria. I let him stay married. I let him stay married to Victoria, but he's trying to take my job. It's not right. That's all I'm saying. It's
David,
not right.
Is that what the whole
off.
story was about? You just being protective of your job?
Yes,
Stop
yes.
taking work away
That's
from
one more
Kevin
client
Adams.
that I could have had on my roster. It's just not good. Harry, if it was...
I'm going to start doing that with
Harry,
my
if you-
competition as
Don't
well.
worry about David. He doesn't know what I know.
Kevin,
Yoga,
can I just
the
say
whole lot.
something? It's not all about you.
People say that to me regularly, but I don't
I'm
understand.
surprised. I'm
I don't
surprised.
understand what they mean.
Kevin and Kate, we'll see you a little later on. Let's see what's happening in the world of sport now with Charlie.
Here's a story in most of the papers. We'll take this one from The Guardian. It's actually not that one. That's The Times. That's part of Sharapova's job. We're going to be talking about that a little later on. The story I wanted to talk about was
You go right
in
ahead.
The Guardian.
Get the
As I
paper.
said, Eddie Jones, the England rugby union coach, has ramped up the hype before tomorrow's match against Wales at Twickenham by saying that Wales scrummage illegally, 100% illegally. He says, I'm not even going to go. There it is, somewhere. Down the bottom there, underneath the Liverpool
there in the
story.
end.
It is there, I promise you. And he's saying that they scrummage illegally. I won't go into the technicalities, but the fact is that Eddie Jones is a really good wind-up merchant. He's an Aussie, and he's taken over the England team, and he's really trying to stir it all up
he
before
stokes the
tomorrow.
fires, doesn't he?
Really does. He really is.
Chosen
Complete
one of-
opposite of his
chosen one of
predecessor.
rugby, possibly. The chosen one of rugby, possibly.
Possibly.
Controversial remarks there. Thank you very much for the moment, Charlie. Let us see what is happening with the weather now.
It's live TV.
Good morning, this is Sunrise, and here to look at the big stories we're covering throughout the day here on Sky News, entrepreneur Kate Hardcastle and celebrity fitness trainer Kevin Adams. Well, we start this morning with remarks from the Archbishop of Canterbury that it's outrageous to label those who have fears about mass migration as racist. Justin Welby says the British people have justified concerns about Europe's migration crisis because of the impact it has on issues like housing and jobs. In an interview with Parliament's magazine, he said, Kate and Kevin, what do you think about the Archbishop's comments? Is he right to make public his views?
I think at some point you have to speak out. He has an opinion, and I want to hear that. When things are not going so well and remarks that I don't agree with, that's when I want him to be quiet. But ultimately, he does have freedom of speech, and I do want to hear him. He should remain impartial, but at certain points he should put his head above the parapet and let us know what he thinks, and he has done. And I agree.
Okay, he's saying there's no official view. The Church doesn't take an official view on the referendum, but by making a comment like this, he does really actually put the Church in an official.
When you're the spokesperson for an organisation, even if you separate your remarks as personal, they're going to have association. So that's why you'll see many, many business people who will say on their social media feeds things like, my comments not associated with that of my business. But I'm afraid the two are, and this is not a business, this is a vocation. So, this is life's choosing, and I think it's very difficult for people to separate. What we do, though, is we take the migrant story and then we immediately link it in to the EU story. And absolutely, there is relevance, but it isn't the whole picture. And it's almost like, I see it almost like as a sound mixing board, in that there are things in the whole EU thing that are pushed right to the maximum, and everyone knows those stories. And there's other elements of it that pull down right to the minimum. And we need to get more balance on that board, so there's a more balanced view for people to try and understand, because I think for the general public it is very difficult to get a grasp of what this means. We hear only the viewpoints, only the hotspots, and a couple of elements of either in or out. We don't seem to have the ability to communicate very fairly and balanced across all the different elements that will affect. It is a big topic. It's very difficult to distill.
I guess there'll be a lot of people who'll be saying, well, look, in an open democratic society which we live in, high-profile figures like the Archbishop of Canterbury coming out with comments like this creates debate, which can only be a good thing, because there is an accusation from certain elements in society saying that, look, we can't talk about this because the minute we do, we get vilified, we get told that we've got extremist views and stuff like that. So if actually we bring this out in the open, we can all talk about it and get our views across.
I think there were, with the leaders' debates, you know, when there was a leader, when they had the leaders' debates, you could kind of like there was more clarity. We heard more of the middle ground. I think with this, as the In and Out campaign, there's not really an official leader of Brexit. You kind of it's very polarising, and that for me means there's no middle ground for us to grasp to. So when it is extreme, so we need some middle ground.
A lot of it just keeps going to the arguments that people want to make, and not actually the
a lot of it
view.
being fought on scare tactics. So maybe we do need something like the leadership debate, as you suggest. Let's take a look at another story we've been covering this morning, and that's housing. Thousands of low-income workers could be priced out of their council homes in England because of government reforms. That's according to Labour. Let's cross live to Westminster now and speak to Shadow. What do you make of that?
John Healey talks about affordable housing. He just talked about people with a combined income of £30,000. What affordable housing is he talking about? But I'm sick to the back teeth of hearing people talking about affordable housing. 3 times your wage in these times means that you've got to find a house for a family for £90,000. John Healey, where are these houses? No one's going to build a house for £90,000. There's not the margin in it for these big companies to build these houses and sell them for £90,000 and for there to be a profit. So there's no such thing as affordable housing for someone, a family that's on a £30,000 combined income. So, John, it's not going to happen. Pull your head out of the sand.
There's a tangent as well. I think a lot of this housing crisis, we need to start looking towards the banks and the lenders, because I know of a lot of people who can't get on the property ladder, not because they can't afford it, because the banks just will not take the risk to lend to them. And we need to do more, perhaps in some term of community lending scheme, where we allow people to stop having to have the choice of paying rent constantly and give them access to get on the property ladder by taking the risk and lending them some more, providing a safety net in there and actually, you know, enabling people to make a progress.
Well, that's what the government's trying to do with this threshold, is this force people into the private sector and actually get onto the property ladder. But as you say, the infrastructure isn't there to support them.
The infrastructure's not there, the houses aren't there.
Something's got to be done, because you've got a generation of youngsters who just can't get on the property ladder. People still in their 20s and 30s, if not 40s, still living with mum and dad at home.
And spending tens of thousands of pounds on rent as well, which you're never ever going to get out of that cycle.
But we come back to the fact that affordable housing means that houses and flats have to be around the £60,000 to £90,000 limit. Where are you going to find a house like that in London or the surrounding areas? You're not going to find them.
First facts that salaries are increasing proportionately.
No, they're not.
Yeah, very difficult.
Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump has secured the support of one of his former rivals, Ben Carson. It comes as Mr. Trump was questioned about an incident at one of his rallies where a supporter punched a protester. I mean, do you get the sense here that all the other candidates have given up and it's like they want to hand it over to Donald Trump?
I think pretty much when you look at Donald Trump and you hear his sound bites go to the people that don't vote. It's just like, you know, there's middle America that will vote in a certain way, and then there's people that have never voted before are hearing the voice of Donald Trump, and they're coming out, they're rallying, they're getting behind him no matter what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
Because he's not speaking in sound bites, political sound bites. We just heard John Healey there speaking in political sound bites. You asked him a question, he wouldn't answer it, he wouldn't commit. John, please tell me, yes or no, are you in or you're out? Then he came back to his soundbite. You asked him again, he came back to his soundbite. Sometimes you just get to the point where you're like, please just answer the question.
But Kate, we have seen Trump sort of moderating his tactics, not as as many fisticuffs in this latest bout.
I'm sure, like many of us, we're monitoring this with interest, and I think the thing is that someone who started out as an almost pantomime character is starting to become even more predominant as a runner, and I think there's great danger in that. And we kind of, he has this brilliant PR team around him that are almost putting this humour to him and softening it all the time and making it more acceptable and more acceptable. We really need to be aware of that, understand that, and you know that is down to media, like that's down to sound bites. The realism of actually saying something and making it happen, very different things.
Two different things.
But yeah, I noticed again this morning there was another thing on social media, almost a humorous thing. Ha ha ha! Donald Trump. Be very careful. Be very careful.
Let's see. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. Let's take a look at sport now. And Andy Murray says Maria Sharapova should be punished for failing a drugs test because it'll send out a strong message. Sharapova faces a possible 4-year suspension after testing positive for a banned drug at the Australian Open. She's one of a number of athletes facing sanctions for using meldonium. Murray questioned whether they had a legitimate reason for taking it. He's been very honest, hasn't he, Charlie?
He's been honest, and he's also actually been far more outspoken on this subject than many of his peers. For instance, the world #1 Novak Djokovic was quite supportive of Sharapova and said it was probably an oversight. But in fact, Murray has said, no, you have to take charge of what you put on and in your body. He checks every single thing himself and double checks both with his doctors and with the LTA to make sure there's no mistake. And he said it's not acceptable for Sharapova and for other athletes to say that it was an oversight. And let's hear from him now.
Taking a prescription drug that you don't necessarily need, but just because it's legal, that's wrong. I read that 55 athletes have failed tests for that substance since January the 1st, so, you know, it's kind of, you just don't expect sort of high-level athletes at the top of many different sports to have heart conditions.
And that's the point there,
Yes,
isn't
that's,
it? You know, he's making quite a
the
subtle
finisher.
point there. You know, how many high-level athletes have heart conditions, which is what this drug is for. It's for things like angina. And she's been taking it for 10 years. Now, for 9 years of that, it was legal. Doesn't make it right, though.
And we still haven't heard what condition she has, have we?
No, she said she was feeling ill when she first took it.
And she's been ill for 10 years.
10 years.
Really sorry. Andy Murray, I'm glad he came out and said that as a top athlete, you have absolutely no excuse. She's a multi-million-pound industry, and she knows exactly what should be going on. The fact that she says she missed an email, if you're that stupid enough not to check your emails as a world-class athlete, then you should be banned
But
for
even
4
if
years.
And they
she
sent
didn't
5
check her
emails too, not just
emails,
one.
her team around her. She has
Right.
a lot of team around her.
You see, and it doesn't. You're not going to get your way out of this. And I think ultimately, Andy Murray realises that, and he's come out and said that. I think Novak is being diplomatic, and another one that's coming across like John Healy, not wanting to put his head above the parapet. Someone has to say something and say it is wrong, and she is wrong.
OK, Kevin and Kate, thank you. Let's take a break now. Still to come on Sunrise.
Not only that, you could end up like myself. You could become Lord Sugar's business partner and win The Apprentice.